Imagine waking up at 5:14 a.m. with the ground dancing beneath your feet. Not just any tremor, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake on the Richter scale. 42 seconds of agony. Buildings collapsing, streets opening up, screams of horror. Now imagine that the worst is yet to come, because the earthquake didn't destroy San Francisco. The fire did. 4 days of fire. 28,000 buildings reduced to ashes. 300,000 homeless. More than 3,000 dead. Firefighters without water. Looting in broad daylight. An entire city rebuilt on bones. Welcome to April 18th, 1906. The day the American dream went up in flames. San Francisco, 1906. It was the 9th largest city in the United States, with about 410,000 inhabitants. The jewel of the American West, called the Gateway to the Pacific. The financial, commercial, and cultural center of the West Coast. More than 40 banks, 5 newspapers, theaters and operas, magnificent mansions on Nob Hill, built by railroad and gold mining magnates. The city breathed prosperity. The American dream had an address. It was also a city built on a ticking time bomb. Geologists knew that San Francisco was on a fault, the famous San Andreas Fault. Since 1893, some scientists had already pointed out the danger, but no one wanted to listen. The city was prosperous. The city was beautiful. The city was the future.
And the future could not collapse. In the early morning of April 18, 1906, the future collapsed. The earthquake lasted about 42 seconds. 42 seconds of destruction. Masonry buildings collapsed like houses of cards. Mission Street, one of the busiest, became a sea of rubble. The Palace Hotel, a symbol of San Francisco's elegance, trembled and cracked. The earthquake was felt from Oregon to Los Angeles, and even as far as central Nevada. Was it 28 seconds or 42? Accounts vary. What doesn't vary is what happened afterward. Because the earthquake, however devastating it was, wasn't the main killer. The killer arrived minutes later. The earthquake broke gas pipes, it broke electrical wires, it broke water pipes, and with each spark, a new fire started. The flames spread rapidly, fueled by the wood of the buildings and the wind. The fire devastated 80% of the city, burning an area of 4.7 square miles. In a few hours, San Francisco became a sea of flames. Firefighters rushed to put out the fires, but the hoses had no pressure. The water reservoirs had ruptured with the earthquake. Desperate firefighters tried to pump water from the sea, but the tides were low. The fire advanced, and the firefighters literally had no water. The fires were so intense and so numerous that the firefighters could not fight them. A single fire outbreak turned into dozens, and soon the flames merged into a single wall of fire. At the time, the Fire Brigade Command issued an order that seemed crazy. Use dynamite to create fire breaks, blowing up entire buildings to stop the fire from spreading. Did it work? Not enough. The explosions created rubble, and the rubble caught fire. The fire was faster than the firefighters, stronger than dynamite, more relentless than anything the city had ever seen. As the fire burned, panic gripped the streets. Entire families fled with what they could carry. Some carried suitcases, others only their children in their arms. The city that had been the gateway to the Pacific was turning into a gateway to hell. Amid the chaos, looting became a brutal reality. Desperate men and women stormed abandoned stores. Some stole food and water. Others, valuables, jewelry, money. The law and order that had sustained the city for decades seemed to have evaporated with the smoke. The police chief gave a controversial order: shoot looters. U.S. Army soldiers were called in to patrol the streets. They were authorized to shoot anyone caught looting. It was no longer a city. It was a battlefield. General Frederick Funston, who took command, gave a direct order: shoot any looter you see, kill him. And the soldiers shot. The exact number of those killed by firing squad was never recorded, but many bodies were found in the streets, shot, with their hands still holding what they had stolen. But it wasn't just looting that haunted the city. There was an even more desperate phenomenon. The fires were so hot that they created their own wind systems. Whirlwinds of fire formed, sucking up debris and carrying embers to other parts of the city. The fire was no longer a straight line. It was a hurricane of flames. The hotels and hospitals, which should have been havens, became death traps. The fire, for example, surrounded the city and county hospital building. Patients who couldn't walk were left behind. The city was ablaze, and humanity was at its lowest point.
The fire lasted 4 days. 4 days of uninterrupted fire. The fire spread to the richest and poorest districts of the city without distinction. The mansions of Nob Hill, which had survived the earthquake, were consumed by the flames. St. Patrick's Cathedral, a city landmark, collapsed. Residents watched helplessly as the city they knew turned to ashes. On April 21, 1906, the rain finally arrived. The rain extinguished what remained of the fire. But for the 300,000 homeless, the struggle was only beginning. They had lost everything: homes, jobs, families, hope. Makeshift camps sprang up in Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, and on the beaches. Tents, shacks, shelters made from what was left. Cold and hunger became the new enemies. Food was scarce. Water was contaminated. Diseases spread. It is estimated that 225,000 people were left homeless, a population larger than that of many American cities at the time. The 1906 earthquake killed more than 3,000 people, but the number is uncertain. Many victims, especially in Chinatown, were never counted. The bodies were burned or buried in mass graves. The city wanted to forget. It wanted to start over. And it did. In 2005, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors officially acknowledged the number of more than 3,000 dead. But for many, the true count will never be known. The fire extinguished the evidence.
In 1906, San Francisco wasn't just a city. It was a symbol of the American dream, a place where anyone could start over. The earthquake and fire nearly extinguished that dream, but the city's inhabitants refused to let that happen. What happened next was one of the greatest Reconstruction stories ever seen. The city was rebuilt in record time. Building codes were rigorously revamped. The famous illusion of the West, the belief that anything is possible, was reaffirmed. San Francisco became, once again, the gateway to the Pacific, and within a few years, the city was stronger than before. But what the inhabitants of San Francisco did in 1906 was a demonstration that human resilience is greater than any disaster. The city's rebirth is perhaps the most important part of the story. The city was rebuilt in record time, and many of the buildings we see today were built on the ashes of that fire. Building codes were updated to ensure the city would never again face such a great tragedy, and the San Francisco Firefighters, who at that time struggled without water, became one of the most respected forces in the United States. The city learned from the tragedy,
But it did not let itself be defeated by it. San Francisco, 1906. The earthquake lasted 42 seconds. The fire lasted 4 days.
The Reconstruction lasted decades, but the memory lasts forever. The earthquake that burned the American dream was not the end. It was the beginning of something new, something the city had never been. Today, San Francisco is one of the most iconic cities in the world. But in the subtext of its modern streets, there is a secret, a story of pain and loss, a story of survival and resilience. Because in 1906, the city burned, but it also rose from the ashes. Tourists walking its streets have no idea that more than a century ago, that same ground trembled and burned. They don't know that beneath the skyscrapers and cable cars, there are bones. There are stories of people who died in search of a better life. There is the echo of a fire that was never completely extinguished. The American dream burned, but it didn't die. Because in San Francisco, the dream is bigger than the disaster. And as long as there are people willing to rebuild, the city will remain standing. That is San Francisco, the city that the fire couldn't kill.